Hi YouTube, I'm Nick North, a big boy with big feelings, and we are in space for this fourth part of the biggest Super Sentai tournament ever. And you can tell we were in space because of the light years and eons that it took for me to get this video to you, because I was sick. You can probably still hear it. The computer was sick and took 2 weeks to get fixed for a port problem. But we're back, baby, and I'm hoping to have the next few parts up a little bit faster. We'll see. We'll see about that. I am gonna say that I'm gonna try it, and then you'll know if it works out or not. Anyway, if you don't know what we're doing here, go back to part 1. But if you're the small few that have been with me throughout all 3 parts so far, I am very happy to tell you that we're finally here to do part 4. Round 1 is gonna take the longest, obviously, and I think it's probably not always super entertaining, but I do think this is a great time to showcase some of the worst designs that we're going to see throughout this tournament. So I hope that you've been finding some enjoyment throughout the process, as much as I have. For the in-space theming today, I have my Gengar shirt on, which is the closest thing to the Psycho Rangers that I own. And also, I didn't want to delay this video anymore by waiting to get something more appropriate. But we will see the Psycho Rangers in this episode. I can confirm that. So, let's get started. Match 301, Lingering Summer Heat Ninja Barotan versus the Nephilis. And these designs aren't bangers. I'll be 1,000 about that. But Nephilis has some cool feral elements, and Lingering Summer Heat Ninja Barotan just looks like someone who wants to, lick my seat after I get up, and that's not someone I can have around, so Nephilis is going to win in this case. Match 302, Birdcage Vagrant versus Navigator Gator. And it's funny because I don't think this Navigator looks like a gator at all, really, and I wouldn't trust him to drive me anywhere either. So that's the first red flag. But Birdcage Vagrant is, actively awesome in how well it's done. Obviously it's going for, the camp angle, but I also like the way that they did, the full body costume. It makes it hard to tell where, the actual human body is under that, and I love that kind of thing. So, Birdcage wins. Match 303, Seashell Mozu versus Dimensional Bug Mother. And I'm not a huge fan, normally, of, round nonsense on the heads of monsters. But if I have to choose, which I do, Seashell is at least going for, spiral themes that make sense. And although I appreciate how, let's say, womanly the head of the Dimensional Bug Mother is, it's overall, a little too much for me. It's a little gross. So Seashell is going to win it. Match 304, Bara Mammoth versus Gambler Belito. Oh, to have a Bara Mammoth. Hell, even this Bara Mammoth in real life would make all of my dreams come true. I like the thick use of geometry on him, and we look at Velito. He's not horribly impressive, besides the fact that he's actually just a little guy inside of that suit, giving very Men in Black. So Bara Mammoth wins. Match 305, Brainwashing Ninja Juku Kinoko versus Mirror Boma. And I like Mirror Boma, but this is another Boma that I feel only works because of how, cool his power / episode probably was. Which is an interesting thing to look at from a design perspective, within the context of the plot of the show. But just a mirror in a basket, taken from that context, isn't really that great. Juku Kinko looks like a dweebus, but he has cool colors. So, and like a nice little like pen pencil thing that I really like. Calling him a brainwasher when he's a teacher is pretty funny. So overall, I think he gets the win. Match 306, Tinplate Org versus Wolfbrain. And I can appreciate what they're going for with Tinplate Org. He's literally just a toy robot. And I think that's cute, but Wolfbrain is a wolf. And as you've probably garnered, if they're on an even playing field, I am almost always going to pick organic over inorganic. And so Wolf beats Toy Robot easily, unfortunately. Match 307, Highness Duke Org Shuten versus Kagakuki. And I like both of these fine enough, with this being another one of the three Dukes that are based on the main face parts. This one being the eye, obviously. The eye isn't bad in terms of the red and blue and like the eyes all over. I don't love the like light green and white parts, whereas I like the red and blue on Kagakuki. I wish the blue was more throughout, obviously. I think that's one of those things that is limited by the bodysuit. But given that it's a mask-only season, it's pretty good. I will give Kagakuki the win. Match 308, General Deathgiller versus Fang Lion Monster. And it's kind of funny that these two got paired up together because at the end of the day, they're both very like head-centric. But Deathkiller at least like sent in like a full body shot, whereas the rest of Fang Lion, I'm guessing, wasn't good enough for them to send in. So Deathkiller wins in what would have been a normally pretty even match. Match 309, Big Ear Mask versus Karaoke Org. And God, I hate what I'm about to do, but Karaoke Org is just like not doing it for me like at all. And I don't love like the haphazard chords and the machinery all over. And although there is like something deeply, deeply unsettling about Big Ear Mask, I do kind of love that about him. So Big Ear Mask wins. Match 310, Shiru Begami versus Missile Crayfish. And I want to like Shiru Begami more than I do. But it's like you only used like the non-exciting, boring parts of the ship. You know what I mean? So no thanks on that. And Missile Crayfish is one of those that's like just so funny to look at for me that I have to give him extra points for being kind of foolish. So Crayfish wins. Match 311, Pig Brain versus Disconnect Brain. And the specific way that the brains are shot for their pictures is like so awful. Like here, like look at Pig Brain's concept art for a second, and then look at the actual image. If I didn't have the concept art, I wouldn't even know what I'm looking at. And like even I know that it's like promotional images from way back when, and so they didn't necessarily like put a ton of thought into it, but at that point you're not even like showing an accurate image of what you're taking a picture of. So like what's the point? And just to clarify, one of my rules is that I don't use concept art to judge these guys because sometimes there is a big difference in quality from how the concept art looks versus the actual costume. And that goes both directions. So sometimes the concept art looks way better and I feel like, you know, there was no way they could have done a suit that good. And then if you look at like the first season concept art, it's literally just like, and I'm not kidding, he drew it on like a napkin. Like it's like a circle with a little stick man. And that somehow turns into like Tiger Mask. And I think, you know, that's great for Tiger Mask, but that's why I'm not using concept art as a factor here. With that said, I still slightly like Pig Brain more than Disconnect Brain, although not by much. So Pig Brain will be moving on. Match 312, Door World versus Dark Dr. Mavro. And I have to give slight props to Door World for choosing a concept that works with the actual undersuit. Possibly being that like the gears open the door or something. Like I can kind of see the mental gymnastics there. But overall, I've got to give it to Dark Dr. Mavro, who, despite like the very like kind of derpy face, has a pretty successful design. Besides that, I love the mix of leather and like cold steel. He's getting his doctorate and advancing to the next round. Match 313, Juggling Org versus Evil Mechanic Dragon Grand. And this is Jindrax's brother from Wild Force, and he has the same kind of like circus theme, being a juggler, obviously. And although I appreciate the camp factor that Evil Mechanic Dragon Grand has of just being a T-Rex with cannons on it, I love that. I think I'm going to give it to Juggling Org just because I like that it's a little bit more like committed to a specific design aesthetic. So he'll be moving on. Match 314, Turbine Org versus Juza Yumihari. And dang, orgs on orgs on orgs so far this episode. And although I like Turbine Org, it doesn't really extend much past its premise. I think like if you're imagining in your head like I am gonna make a turbine monster, this is basically what you would get about 9 out of 10 times. Whereas Juza is like a really cool samurai that doesn't use a sword. He uses a bow and arrow, which I think is so sick. Like, that doesn't even count the awesome like half and half color style that he has going on, which I also like. But to use a weapon that's not traditionally associated with them, I think is very rad. So he is going to be winning. Match 315, Oniboma versus Zonic Lee. And I like Oniboma, but if we're all being honest with each other, you know, we're friends at this point, I think. It's pretty basic of a monster. I feel like even though I love Oni, it's like the go-to if you can't think of anything else for a monster design, especially in Power Rangers. And I don't think it really rises above that bar that's set. Zonic is a chicken, which I will give you is also a very basic choice. But the ways that they made it interesting, including like the red spikes all throughout, the beak in the middle, the eggs, it all makes it look really cool despite its like humble inspirations. So Zonic wins. Match 316, General Venjix versus Confrontation Beast, Hermit Crab Fist, Dokaria. And it's another one of the generals, secretly stolen from Beetleborgs, and arguably one of the biggest villains of all time in Power Rangers. Venjix is here. He was the villain of not only Forever Red, but of 2 separate series. Dokaria is doing a good job, as the Confrontation Beasts normally do, but overall I think the sleek black outfit of Venjix and the overall like inspirations of the Beetle are nothing to sneeze at, so he is going to win. Match 317, Card Sima Beast Godai versus ZZ Gyuri. And what on earth is the Card Sima Beast? Why is he called that? Why is he the Card Sima Beast if he is just a purple eye monster? Great question. And yet we don't have an answer. What we do have is a shocking upset, because ZZ Gyuri is going to be a turbo monster who will win his round, which is a big accomplishment. I like the barrel and the kanji design he has overall, and even though the names of turbo monsters don't super make sense, it's better than whatever Godai has going on. Match 318, Cat Evo versus Nezi Ranger Blue. And just as I think a blanket statement, you're going to have to try really hard to beat a Nezi Ranger, also known as a Psycho Ranger. Told you they would be here. And Cat Evo looks just way too like unkempt for that. If we simply looked at the Ranger form for Nezi Blue, that would be one thing. but his monster form is also just like leagues above Cat Evo. Um, I almost feel kind of bad for Cat Evo for even being matched up against Nezi Blue because he's the obvious winner. Match 319, Cyclops Mask versus Gaborio. And I could be here all day talking about why I love Gaborio so much and how he would fit into like any Legend of Zelda game. And I will, but that is for later rounds. Cyclops Mask is like a big no for me. Um, from like the season 15 Drag Race wig to like the weird smile, it's a no all the way through. So Gaborio wins. Match 320, Dr. Man versus Berigian Milbar. And I like a spiky wheel. Don't get me wrong, but that's really all it is. And although I want more from Dr. Man, starting with a better name, the costume is pretty cool and definitely gives the like sci-fi vibes that he's supposed to. Doctor, tell me the news. You're going to the next round. Match 321, Jockey versus Vase Org, and I really like both of these, especially because of how multicolored and interesting Vase Org is to look at. But Jockey fits the red bodysuit really well, and it almost matches it entirely. Like the gold and the red is such a good color combination. All the bodysuits for repeat seasons, I think I like the one from Dawn Brothers the most. Jockey wins, but not by like a landslide or anything. Match 322, Metamalar versus Fountain Pen Shadow. And it's finally time for me to introduce you guys to my king, Fountain Pen Shadow. I'm sorry to kind of insult him by even asking him to compete against this loser. I like how Fountain Pen is like a huge hand holding the pen, and also the pen head is like his actual head. He's great. There's so much to digest here that I'm excited to go over in the next round. But Metamalar looks more like a grunt enemy than like a villain of the week. So Fountain Pen Shadow has to win. Match 323, Black Hair Mask versus Debo Natsudamon. Black Hair Mask could easily fit in a Strangers movie or like a B-movie slasher, and although I like it, it's very obviously low budget. And when you're going up against like Natsudamon, who looks very fun, being the literal personification of summer, I love like the blue and the complementary colors that go with that. Natsudamon for the win, but good job to Black Hair Mask. Match 324, Lens Bankai versus Origin. And I have to give Lens Bankai props for being so like sleek and uniformly geometric. He's great to look at, but Origin is just next level. I love the like metallic ant look. He honestly kind of reminds me of those like metal beasts, the like Zord knockoffs that Ivan Ooze uses in the Power Rangers movie. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Origin wins. Match 325, Bandarian Jiva versus Dr. Yokol. And I'm sorry, Doctor. This has to be a joke. A little mask and your regular scrubs with a cape does not make a winning design. I don't care how much you spent on that doctorate degree. It's not gonna do you any favors here. I mean, Bandarian isn't like crazy intricate either, but I really like the red and the silver together. In my mind, like this is how you should do an Oni. Jiva wins. Match 326, Kappa versus Bakaru Yuki. And oh god, not another one. Okay, so let's talk about the like tale of two cities here. Kappa, in my opinion, is a bad like starting point for a design, but honestly, he has a lot of things that are very interesting despite that. Like I like the cucumber design, which references like the lore of Kappa and a general sense of like old style superheroes that I feel like is very appealing to look at. Bakaryuki is kind of the opposite. He's based on Abba Ranger, which turns into Dino Thunder. It's obviously a very beloved series, and yet he kind of looks like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas, and that's just like not delivering on the amazing concept that he was given. So I'm surprised to say this, but I think Kappa is going to win. So good job for you, man. I'm happy to change my mind a little bit about Kappas. Match 327, Kamatichi versus Sai Boma. And the issue that Kamatichi runs into is that I've seen like 2 Ninja Steel monsters that do this exact thing, but with way better budget. And that's not really fair to him, but that is the truth of the matter. With Saiboma, it takes a little bit to decipher what's going on, but once you can figure it out, it's like a pretty serviceable design. So Saiboma is going to win slightly. Match 328, Fireworks Ninja Tamayadan versus Breaking. Tamayadan is a CD exclusive villain, which is cool, but Breaking is a relatively well done giant dragon. He's reminiscent of like so many things. I could be here all day, but some of them are like Godzilla, the Green Dragon Zord. Breaking is gonna win because of the benchmark is like, are you better than a cool dragon? Then Tamayadan simply is not. Match 329, Gunman Mask versus Flying Squirrel Monger. And I can respect what the Flying Squirrel is going for. But like rodent faces to me always just like look nasty. They kind of have that like resting aura of like disease. Gunman Mask is another good example of how the first season supplements their like maybe relatively weak mask design with overall good costume design, and sometimes that's kind of missing from the later seasons, or at least like so follow me here. If we divide the seasons of Power Rangers into like 4 quadrants, the early seasons were really good about it. The like Changeman kind of seasons were not so good about it. Then we had like the Abba Ranger seasons; those were pretty good about it. And then we had the most recent ones where they reused the bodysuit, which I hate. So 2 out of 4 do it really well. It's I guess what I'm saying. Match 330, Q-Vol versus Glasses Org, and another one where like I get it. Like I get why this is the Glasses Org. But did you have to be Johnny Bravo's mom's glasses of all the glasses you could be? It immediately reads as old lady, which isn't super scary in a monster unless you do it like really well. Meanwhile, Q-Vol works on a lot of levels because he's so like smooth and circular, which contrasts with his other generals, Jagged and Oswald, who are like angular and cubular. Q-Vol wins just within the context of everything. Match 331, Cash Extortionist Keys versus Seijuki. And Seijuki is a reference to Gingaman / Lost Galaxy. And Keys is a like water flea based monster. Although I don't like love Seijuki, he's obviously the winner. The skulls and animals are so like evocative of the series that he's inspired by. That's nice to see. And a water flea is just like not what I would go to for like stellar design inspo, but that's just me. Match 332, Degarjan versus Boma Dr. Leda. And Degarjan is so sick. I love like all of the red and orange and black, and the giant hammer fist is so deadly looking. It's amazing. And Leda is all right, all things considered. The Nautilus head doesn't really look as scary as he thinks it does. It just looks a little silly, I think. it's interesting because squid and octopus are one of those things that can either look really terrifying or really like goofy, just depending on how well you're able to do it. So, and I don't think that the white/flesh color really helps that. Degarjin wins. Match 333, Gecko Evo versus Speaker Bankai. And honestly, it's really unfortunate that I don't get to see Gecko's whole body, because I mostly like what's going on here, but I can't like super justify giving him a win based on just the face. And that's the really tough part, I think. Speaker Bankai is like pretty campy. The patterning all over the speakers and the general look of it is more high level the more you look at it. So it'll go to Speaker Bankai, which is a shame because I do like what Gecko has going on. Match 334, Dokugler versus Gakatsuki. And I like Gakatsuki, but besides the big mouth, the rest of him isn't like horribly impressive, unfortunately. Whereas Dokugler is half moth, half caterpillar, and I think that's really cute. The caterpillar specifically is kind of reminding me of Weevil's like moth larvae from Yu-Gi-Oh! I also kind of like that it's not fully split down the middle. I like when they kind of take that opportunity to make some new, different cuts and stuff. That's fun. Dokugler wins. Match 335, Haku versus Meteor BEM. And oh, Meteor BEM, you never had a chance. Haku is like a beautiful gold with silver accents and a shiny gold trim. It's just so like royal and angelic and amazing, and I love him so much, and will you please marry me? Haku wins. Match 336, Bormozu versus Nezi Ranger Yellow. Bormozu is exactly okay, and the Madonna, like Katy Perry breast piece does not help with that. Nezi Yellow is another one that has both a really sick ranger form and also a beautiful monster form. The wiki says that it's like hypothetically spider inspired, but the hornet coloring is always going to be a hit in my mind. That's what comes to mind way more. Nezi Yellow is going to wrap up the win in this case. Match 337, Abercrombie versus Neiman Dogler. And Abercrombie is pretty cool with the like smoky body, and to be honest, like he didn't even have to be as cool as I think he is, because this Dogler sucks. 3 faces that all suck, and the general body design is very boring, which is unfortunate because I want to like all of them. I want to like all of the monsters, but the Doglers just make it really hard. Abercrombie wins. Match 338, Baron Iron Mask versus Tengu. And from the really zoomed out full body picture of Baron Iron Mask, I like the metal and like the warrior aesthetic. And like this Tengu is from the season that would eventually turn into Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. It's ninja based. And I can't say that it's really giving anything notable, which is surprising given how good the rest of that season is in terms of design. Honestly, he's not even really giving Tengu to me. So Baron Iron Mask is the winner. Match 339, Garok versus Monkey Mozu. And I just have to start off by saying the emerald color is like so fucking nice. And I honestly kind of love that the Beetleborgs got exposed to us, or I guess me, in this way. This is our 4th one so far in the tournament, based on G-Stag from Juko B Fighter, and it's just so pleasing to look at. All of the wires and robotics accentuate the design rather than being distracting, and I love that. I think that's a little bit harder to do with robot designs. I think a good example of how it's sometimes distracting is with Monkey Mozu, where it detracts from the whole design. It isn't very seamless, so Garok wins. Match 340, Pancharolar versus Phantom Minosaur. And Pancharolar is based on roller skates, and he does okay with that. But Phantom Minosaur is pretty sick, like candelabra inspired. I wish the white body wasn't all of it. It kind of looks like when you're doing paper mache and it hasn't been like painted over yet. But that's okay. It sells its job. It gives the spooky vibes that I need from the Phantom Minosaur. And so Phantom is going to win. Match 341, Despius versus A.A. Abanba. And Despius is based on a pharaoh with the base of the pyramid and the overall stature. It makes him look very steadfast and tough, which I love. A.A. Bamba is better than a lot of the Turbo Monsters, and I actually like what he has going on, but Despius is the winner. Unfortunately, that's just the obvious choice here. Match 342, Hygiene versus Daikon World. And Hygiene is a giant cat that can transform into a giant intergalactic snake monster with butterfly wings, which is pretty cool. Daikon World is a recoloring of Carrot World, which is also pretty cool, I guess. But I think anyone with eyes can see that Hygiene deserves to win. Match 343, Armadillo Monger versus Divination Dimension. I really like the energy Armadillo Monger is bringing to the function, like the little neon hands and the all gray costume. I think is pretty sick. Divination Dimension, besides the fishbowl head, looks like an 8th grade school play outfit, and I love that for him. That's certainly an aesthetic, but Armadillo Monger is gonna roll into the winner's circle. Match 344, Samurai Doll Org versus Namoro Bacho. And Samurai Doll Org is so cool. I love the red and blue. The face on the body is very Japanese mythology. And the way that they made the horns into the actual horns of a samurai helmet is pretty cool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, fun fact, the orgs all have horns that denote their rank in the organization. However, the colors, geometry, fun factor of Namoro Bacho with its spine and the slug coming over it is gonna sweep the win out, but very barely. I want all the Samurai Doll Org fans to know I really thought about it. Match 345, Batzlergin versus Rolling Monster. And this is another issue where the Rolling Monster is too out of focus for me to even get a good grasp of. And Batzlergin, while having a lot of things I'm not super into, has enough going for it and enough that I can actually see that it gets to win this match. Match 346, Anchor Camp versus Takak. And Takak is probably my favorite of the 3 mute orgs that were part of a crossover between Time Force and Wild Force. And I love the lightning and the prickly design. Anchor Camp is pretty cool, but the lighting doesn't let it fully deliver on the design, in my opinion. I would love to see these outfits in person. I would love to be able to fully ingest them that way, but no such luck. Takak is the winner. Match 347, Manzai Ninja Tsukomina versus Mamorigami. And Manzai Ninja Tsukomina, when I had to save it, its file name was Bald Loser, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment by whoever uploaded that file to the wiki. Mamorigami is origami with computer parts, and he's very visibly interesting. I wish I knew more about computers so that I could better understand his design, but anyone can see that Mamorigami deserves to win here. Match 348, Steam Locomotive J-Man versus Chain Shadow. And this J-Man is going to lose, obviously. I think he would deserve to lose in most cases. But Chain Shadow is also amazing. I love the brassy color and sooty color and the way his arms are. The eyes are also giving very FNAF with the sunken white. I just love it. I love that the shadows kind of lean into that design aesthetic. Big win for Chain Shadow. Match 349, Mucha Suyondiver versus Kal Indiver. And it's another one of these guys. And I at least like that he's like the big kahuna of all of them. He's kind of an amalgamation of all of the little ones. Kal Indiver, despite the similar name, is not related at all. And is in fact just another loser from Deca Ranger in a black suit. A nice looking black suit, to be fair, but not much you can do around Mucha Suyondiver, who will be winning. Match 350, Hyela Hyela versus Bowser. And Hyela Hyela looks like a very cool, angelic, like, swan, bluebird lady. And I really love the, like, unique corner of the design sphere, especially in Power Rangers, that she kind of embodies. However, on the other end, we have Bowser, not that one, who looks like a messed up space version of like the Goof Troop, and I like it, but Hyela Hyela is much better. Match 351, Kanye Rajin versus Hades Beast Leech. And Kanye Rajin is a sad sight because one of the monsters, Arijin, won earlier. The ant part is really cool, but the crab part brings it down by a lot. I don't know why they chose to match up the monsters that they did if it wasn't going to make the best result. But, whatever. The Leech monster is sick. I love the big, like, bone frame. And it looks like it's, like, slithering through the mouth of a fish skeleton. It's very sick to me. So he will be moving on. Match 352, Grand Witch Grandian versus Warship Mask. And Grandian is the mother of the Saima family, the main villains of Go-Go 5 / Lightspeed Rescue. She was known as Banshira in the English translation. Her design isn't my favorite of all time, but I like what she represents as like the origin of all demonic evil. And it's a good enough delivery on that. I think Warship Mask looks kind of like low effort, even for the mask monsters. So Grandian wins. Match 353, Earth Imperial Prince / Princess Egum versus Boat Org. And this is one of my favorite orgs, which is a bit of a drag because Egum is like very good. And Boat Org doesn't deserve the first round result that he's going to get. But Egum is honestly serving so much, and like the whole gender bending disguise part of her design is very cool. I love how like sleek yet detailed it all is with the black and the gold. Egum wins, but my sweet boy Boat Org deserves so much better. Match 354, Confrontation Beast Scorpion Fist Sarisa versus Jigura. And Jigura is a cool crocodile with a little like puff on the top of its head. Sure. Great. Love him for that. Sarisa is one of the 5 Venom Fists, and the only one who is a girl, or is at least femme presenting, since a lot of the monsters in Power Rangers are like just embodiments of evil. So what is gender really? I love the use of like stingers and claws as her like hair and helmet, and I'm always gonna dig a red and black color scheme, especially if it's done as well as hers is. So Sarisa wins beautifully. Match 355, the Mazarus versus Bara Missiler, and these two are about the same level of quality for me. It comes down to the concepts of these monsters. One is like a cool Mothra-inspired kind of moth with spider elements, and Bara Missile is a missile robot. So it's going to go to Masaras, but the image quality is not helping their case. Match 356, Galactic Merchant Dongaros versus Giant God Gordon. And I'm simply never a fan of like these giant face monsters. Like I don't get it. I don't get MODOK for Marvel. I don't get any of the ones like this. I just think they always look so ugly, and I get that's like part of the point, but at the end of the day, we still have to look at these guys. Like them being so visually unappealing is not going to win any points for me. But if we forget about him for a second, Gordon, on the other hand, is like, I love him. He is so regal and magnificent and based off of like a giant stone church or structure. He reminds me of the first boss in Death's Door, which is one of my favorite games of all time. He is going to win pretty handily, I think. Match 357, Road Dimension versus Armor Rose. It's so unfortunate because based on the concept art, Armor Rose could look really awesome, but with the poor lighting and everything, I can't effectively render a judgment on them. Road Dimension is basically going to win by forfeit and by at least having all of its lights operational as opposed to some of the other traffic light monsters. So he gets that, I guess. Match 358, Mantis Evo versus Bodarujim, and it's bug versus bug. You love to see it. Mantis Evo has some cool things going on with it being like two mantises, but Bodarujim is based on a firefly and has a few cool forms. I like his design better, but also like the lack of firefly monsters is, I think, part of this on a subconscious level because I don't have anything else firefly based really to compare it to. But with mantises, it's like there's such a high bar to do it so well, which is unfortunate for Mantis Evo, but very fortunate for Bodarujim. Match 359, Picky Eating Monster versus Thunder Ninja Undaigo. And Picky Eating Monster is another one that could fit right in with like the Scooby-Doo monsters. I like that about him, but the colors aren't great. Undaigo is thunder / eel based, and he's just a lot more interesting to look at on the whole. So I think I'll be taking Undaigo to the next round. Match 360, Ro-O-Zari of the Hydropan Header versus the Burazas. And there's actually a lot of things I like about the Burazas. The Rhino Beetle theming, the black and jagged designs, but Hydropan Header is just done so tastefully. Like, the spirals all over, the placement of the ram heads to help look like actual armor. It's a great example of what I feel is maximalism done well. So Ro-O-Zari wins the first round. Match 361, the Zabalda versus Komuhachi. And I would give Zabalda so much more credit if the head design transferred to the rest of the body. Instead, its body is like muddy and gross and bad to look at. Komuhachi wins for having a pretty simple yet effective design of like the octopus in the jar. I think that's fun. Match 362, Forkloid versus Long. And this is another one where I feel really bad for Forkloid because I actually think it's a pretty great design for the season it comes from. But Long is amazing. I mean, the gold and ornamental dragons all over and the use of armor, it's like so satisfying to look at. I could go on all day. Even the shoes are like next level, which is such a good attention to detail. I love it all so much. Sorry, Forkloid, but Long is the winner. Match 363, Hunter G versus Dora Titan. And Dora Titan looks like a way worse version of Dora Knight from the same faction. And when you're going up against like a cartoony, like Colonel Mustard, Elephant Hunter guy, it's not doing you any favors. His armor can't stop Hunter G from shooting into the next round. Match 364, Lieutenant Colonel Shaddam versus Cursed Fan Beast Madogi. And I do love a man in leather, but at this point, especially with the older seasons, it's been done so much better. The design of Madogi is really cool to look at from the standpoint of how like a person would actually fit in that super tight suit. I think it's really interesting. I think it's cool. So Madogi moves on. Match 365, Deathworm versus Ghost. And Deathworm is like genuinely disturbing to me. And I hate to give it to him, but like the design is so good. Like at a certain point, that disturbing factor has to earn you a lot of points. I think it's it's like a hard threshold to get there, but once you do it effectively, it's like really good. Ghost, despite the name, is more like a frog and not even a very good one. So Deathworm is going to worm into the next round. Match 366, Cat Mozu versus Marigo Mori, and I like a lot of the Mozus, but like Cat Mozu is not in that club. The like half robot side doesn't look great, and when you're going up against Marigo Mori, who has like a pangolin aesthetic that I love, and like the hellish little touches near his legs elevated even higher, so Marigo Mori is the winner. Match 367, Machine Beast Tamer Karis versus Devil Gun. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the joke of like the monster just being a gun on his head. But Karis is like the thick queen that we all deserve and also gives Beast Tamer, both of which I love. So she is going to win. Match 368, Dark Blue versus Satan Megas. And another one of these failed like copier results. The one thing I can give him before the inevitable L is that I like his color possibly the best of the Dark Rangers. Satan Megas looks very cool, and I love that it has like an eyeball weak point, like a Zelda boss. Can you tell I've been playing a lot of Hyrule Warriors lately? By all of these Zelda references. Match 369, hand-to-hand combat monster versus four-faced monster. And that's a man, Mori. And I have to say, the exaggerated, like, nipple spikes and rib braces look really camp, even if I don't love, like, the weird diaper vibe of the underwear. Four-Face Monster is mostly losing because its face, which is part of the whole thing, looks sloppy, and that's all I have to go off of. So, hand-to-hand combat monster wins. Match 371, Shadon versus Sonoza. And it's matches like this that get my heart pumping and my mind distressing because I like both of them quite a lot. It's also one where I might change my mind depending on the day, but I have to make a decision and stick with it. That's part of my need for integrity as a very low count YouTuber. So Shadon's military dragon style is so like ferocious and interesting, and I just love that. And at the same time, Sonoza's armor is so awesome. With the giant chest guard, I love a good spear. The helmet looks really cool. I'm really torn on this, but I am going to give it to Sonoza. Match 371, Tooth Decay Jamin versus Kaiju Rugen. And a fun fact about me, since we're getting to know each other, I hate teeth stuff. And this monster is doing no favors for those of us that don't like to be reminded of tooth decay. There is no part of me that wants to see the cross-section of a tooth with infection. And Kaiju Rugen is pretty interesting looking, and it doesn't make me look cringe. So he wins. Match 372, Kamika Raijin versus Densha Lloyd 2. Poor Kamika Raijin has some major issues with his, like, face and hair, question mark. Those are the things that are kind of holding him back for me. Densha Lloyd 2 looks like a transformer, even down to, like, the little light blue and black touches on the accents. It's fun to look at, and although it's not by a big margin, Densha Lloyd 2 wins. Match 373, the Demos versus Brave Sky. And according to the wiki, Brave Sky is based on an otaku, and I like the touches of what look like Power Ranger masks on its pants. It's a collab with Brave Frontier 2, which is a cool game that I've played before. Hashtag not sponsored. And also, at the same time, the Demos looks like a Bayonetta boss with its like larger than life body mess and like the porcelain mask. Overall, I love it so much more. Demos wins. Match 374, Torpedo Piranha versus Buffalo Monger. And I love Buffalo Monger because of how goofy he is. Like, the hair and the horns are like so funny. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, it's also a little sloppy. That's part of what makes it look so goofy. Torpedo Piranha has some of those aspects that Buffalo Monger has, but also kind of looks like just two piranhas in a trench coat, which I think is very funny, while not sacrificing like the style points. So Torpedo Piranha torpedoes into the next round. Match 375, Back to Ninja Octinudo versus Adjutant Shima. And there are a lot of things I like about Octinudo, like the spiraling tentacles that make up the different parts of his outfit, like the pauldrons and the torso. But Shima has like very like cartoony aesthetics. It's kind of giving like Samurai Jack or Dexter's Laboratory. I also really like the color use and the geometry on Shima. She will barely cut above the back two ninja, but just enough to secure the win. Match 376, Leech Drill versus Confrontation Beast Fox Fist Tsuneki. And Leech Drill does exactly what it needs to. Being a giant leech guy. But like beyond that, I'm not horribly impressed. I don't think it helps that I've seen another well-done leech earlier in this video. Tsuneki is the fox-based Confrontation Feast, and the bow and arrow, the kitsune white with the more traditional orange fox is so nice to look at. Overall, Tsuneki wins. Match 377, Micro Suyoindiver versus Carrot World. Callback from earlier, Micro Suyoindiver is probably the best of the Suyoindiver monsters, specifically because of the like red and blue fusion colors. I'm always going to love when red and blue have a good combo. Carrot World is very similar to Daikon World from a few matches ago, and that's not doing him any favors because they're both losers. Micro Suyoindiver wins. Match 378, Confrontation Beast Locust Fist Burazemia versus Shark Camp. And Burazemia doesn't have any images I can find online. He is another one of the CD disc exclusive monsters. So Shark Camp is essentially going to get like a bye in tournament settings. But I do like the hyper-angular vibes that he has going on. Match 379, SS Pamon versus Sononi. And SS Pamon is the leader of the like knockoff ranger team from Turbo, who I remember most because of the absolute banger Confusion that hypnotized a bunch of people in the episode that it was in. It's sad, however, that he has to go up against Sononi because the angelic vibes are like immaculate. I love the like overall very like clean white and gold aesthetic, as I've said before. The feathers to the holy crest as the chest plate, it's all very good. It's very interesting. There's always a way that they do these outfits for monsters, specifically for like Sononi and that kind, where like they give Sentai Protag vibes, but they are very obviously evil, which I love their ability to do that. Sononi wins. Match 380, Baki versus Rock Face Mask. And it's another one where I really love the camp value of just making like the Eastern Island head all over. I like it, but it's a loss to Baki because I love the blue flames. They're very cool. The samurai clothes, very cool. And the sculpting of the body makes it look like monstrous and muscular. Don't get me wrong, it's close, but Baki wins. Match 381, Ushi Baroque the Brawl versus Saxophonalar. And Saxophonalar has some cool concepts. I like the idea of using different types of pottery and patterning but like the head completely loses me. I don't know what they're going for here. It doesn't work for me at all. Ushibaroku is the epitome of using all parts of the bull, because from the meat to the horns to the leather to the fur, it's using every aspect somewhere in here, and in ways that are really visually satisfying to look at. Ushibaroku wins, and I think kind of a landslide. Match 382, Dynal versus Parabolic Mask. And did I get far enough in math to know at all what a parabola is? No. I know that it goes like this, I think, but that's about it. But do I need to know what it is to let it win over this other loser? No. Dynal has some interesting things, but it's like if someone made a way worse version of Black Manta from DC. I like the shapes and the details of Parabola Mask. He wins, but just kind of barely. Match 383, Devil Might versus Diamond World. And Diamond World uses the weird suit from this season to his advantage, making the normal like bronze or silver gears into like a bright gold, which I think helps with the overall rich vibes. It makes it seem like he's way different from the other world monsters. Devil Might is a fun pun, being dynamite themed, but not much more than that. So, as much as I love these like joke monsters, like this one or like the gun head guy, it doesn't hold up after I've seen the joke. You know what I mean? So Diamond World is gonna win. Match 384, Bomb Sima Beast Gas Gale versus Shurin Kenki, and Gas Gale is fine. But because of the image quality, I'm having a really hard time finding anything particularly notable about him. My fun fact about Shurikenki is that he's one of multiple monsters that comes from the same character in Dawn Brothers, who just seems like a guy with a bad attitude, which I think is pretty funny. Besides that, there's some pretty fun stuff happening here. I like the actual hat, the actual shuriken, and like the shredded body designs. Shurikenki wins. Match 385, Gara Gara versus Gecko of Illusions. And ooh, it's another good one, another good clash. I like the overwhelming majesty of Gecko, and the detailing is really superb. Gara Gara has some like Kali design inspirations from Hindi. And he also has kind of like bug vibes like the rest of his season. I think his back kind of reminds me of a beetle. Gara Gara wins, but Gecko is amazing as well. Match 386, Nero Kilner versus Garan Dogler. And Garan Dogler, better than most Doglers, has almost no chance against Nero Kilner. I really like the idea of using Egyptian inspirations and having different main colors than blue and gold. Because don't get me wrong, blue and gold looks great together. But I think as is shown with Nero Kilner, pink and gold is also amazing. I think it's such an underused combination. And honestly, seeing how well it's done here makes me want to see it more often. Nero wins. Match 387, Taiyuki versus Yokai Wan Yudo. And Taiyuki is interesting because in his season, the same one that all of the key monsters are from, the monsters are basically people's desires turning them into a monster. And I haven't seen the season, so forgive me. But for some reason, the Pink Ranger from his season turns into quite a few of them. It's the first Pink Ranger ever that's a male, and he consistently screws up, which I think is pretty funny. I think I like Taiyuki as like an illustration if I just saw it in the 2D space, but in a 3D space, I'm not a fan. At least not as much as I am of Wan Yudo. The one point I'm going to take off of Wan Yudo is that his wisps don't look very good. They look like strange eyeballs. Maybe that was the intent, I don't know, but they don't work for me. The rest of it is done very well, and he gives off train very well, even down to the basic body shape, so I'm going to give Wan Yudo the win. Match 388, Nezi-Ranger Pink versus Dora Kenkaku. And I think it's interesting. I use a random number generator for all of my tournaments, which more will be coming, not just Power Rangers stuff. But I always find it very interesting. Like, we've done 3 videos before this, 300 whole monsters, and we've never gotten a single Nezi-Ranger. And now in this one, that happens to be based on End Space, at least from a theming perspective, we've gotten 3 of them already, which I think is pretty sick because I really love their monsters. Dora Kinkaku has some really cool traditional Asian weapons. I think that's great. He's a reference to Journey to the West, which I haven't read, but is obviously like a nominal work in general history of literature, I guess. Nezi Pink has some really awesome like plant design from top to bottom. I like that it uses a lot of the parts of the plant. And honestly, she would probably win even not counting the Ranger form. That seems to be a pretty common theme with these guys, at least in the first round. So Nezi Pink wins. Match 389, Table Shadow versus Dain Baruto of the Morning Star. And Dain Baruto is supposed to be a general for his faction, but there is like no part of me that finds him intimidating, impressive, even like noteworthy that I would be like, yeah, you're the general, I'm gonna listen to you. On the other hand, the Shadows do something amazing with how they're able to make mundane objects very interesting and sometimes even very like scary, using black and silver as their main design inspirations. The use of the like top of the table, the use of the table legs as horns. I like that if you were to make him crawl, which might be a thing for you, I don't know. He would look like a regular table, and I think that's great. They might have even used that in the show, I don't know, but I think it would be cool. So Table Shadow wins. Match 390, Sasarina Mazujin versus Rhino Kanth. And my issue with Sasarina Mazujin is that he's half scorpion, half catfish, and they're not syncing well. It's giving Malachite from Steven Universe in how inefficiently they're working together. Rhino Kanth is one of my favorite Kanths because like that faction does something so effective with like spikes and sharp edges. I don't know how they do it, but it looks like actively dangerous while also still looking like thick and impressive. And Rhino Kanth is no stranger to that, with the spikes just looking so good. I don't get it. Rhino Kanth wins. Match 391, Avatar Roki versus Führer Crocodile. And Avatar Roki is one word. It's not like Avatar Roku from the Avatar show. Avatar Roki gets points for being like an evil version of the red Dawn Brother Ranger. But the biggest reason he gets the win is because Führer Crocodile looks like the biggest dweebus I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I want to push him down the stairs. Multiple times even. As many as it would take for him to look different, I guess. Avatar Roki wins. Match 392, Tiger Mozu versus Kaznarak. And this isn't like the most tiger that I've ever seen, but it'll do, especially because like the scar and the saber teeth look a little better. I guess Kaznarak is from like the live show, and the big thing holding him back is like the giant t-shirt he's wearing and the non-uniform design aesthetic. It really just holds him back. Tiger Mozu wins, but like just barely. He's no Tiger Mask if we're being real here. Match 393, General Schwarz versus Kingon of the Bigfoot. And this one's hard because we have the robot leather daddy of my dreams versus my amazing weapon Bigfoot boy. And if it isn't obvious, I love both of these designs, but Kingon uses an amazing weapon. I believe it's a Kanabo. I love them so much. He has also like an inherently vicious design aesthetic, like the maw ripping into its chest. It's just so amazing to look at, and I think it really hits the like pollution / cryptid vibe of his faction really well. I think compared to him, Schwarz, who has done like really, really, really well, is kind of one note. Like, he's only really giving like robot leather daddy of my dreams. So Kingon is gonna win. Match 394, Dai Satan versus Hononuki. And hypothetically, I like Daisatan, but it's just a spiky head. There's really not much else going on there. Hononuki has some cool use of bones all over. I'm a big animal guy, in case that wasn't obvious. I'm currently reading up on like a bunch of different animals. Wow, cool, cool guy Nick over here. But there are very notable like cow skulls, elephant skulls, fish, frog bones all over the place. It's so cool and artistically thought out. Even while looking relatively simple on the forefront. So Hononuki wins. Match 395, Adjutant Buba versus Barujin, and the counterpart of Adjutant Shima. This one goes for more of like a space pirate feel. I like him less than Shima, but I like him just fine. He exists. Barujin has some cool stuff going on, but he's not really doing well enough to deliver on those concepts, and definitely not well enough to beat Buba in a fight. So Buba wins. Match 396, Satarakura Jr. versus Shabonlar. The son of Satarakura, he has the same design, and I like it a lot more than the Shabonlar, who is giving basically nothing except like Play-Doh Boy. Junior takes this one, going to the next round. Match 397, Gamelar versus Hyoku Braverjin. And Hyoku Braverjin is how I think all of these Jin mixing ones should have been. Like, the mix of the black and gold is really good, and the mixing of the two Apex Predators, it just makes sense. Like, why... I'm thinking specifically of, like, mixing the Scorpion and the Catfish. Why would you do that? It doesn't vibe. Why wouldn't you do, like, even just based on the ones in this video, just the ones that we've been talking about today, why wouldn't you do Ant and Scorpion and then Crab and Catfish? And that's not even counting all the other ones I'm sure they did. Anyway, it's fine. It's half Cobra, half Leopard, and all terrifying. Gamelar purports to be a frog, but I don't see it. It's not passing the vibe check. I hate him, and I'm happy to sacrifice him to Hyoku Braverjin. Match 398, Kasha versus Destra Mijo. And Kasha is from the season where they're all based on yokai. And I don't really understand why this one decided to dress up like a fireman. So for like concept inspo, he's getting some points deducted. But overall, I like him just fine. Destra is all about grenades and explosions, and I love that for him. I think the use of a dragon as the animal concept to fit with that theme is very good, is very fitting. He is going to win, mostly just because Kasha fumbled the bag. Match 399, Great King Icarus versus Tyreloid. And this is another one where it's like, your name is Great King Icarus, and yet, like, you look this terrible. No, absolutely not. Like, Tyreloid wins, even though he looks like he needs an updated paint job. It's still better than Great King Icarus. Match 400, Amo Endeavor versus Onimaru, and this one is hard. I like both of them, especially because Onimaru is based off of a hammerhead shark, one of the many animals I hope to get tattooed on me. I even love how it's done, being like a non-traditional color of that, with it being red. But Amo Endeavor has some really sick, like, blue and Yeti color designs. I like him a lot because of how cohesive, but also, like, differently colored he is. I'm going to give it to Omo in this case. And with that, we have officially finished part 4 of the biggest Super Sentai tournament ever. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I hope to get them out a little bit faster, but honestly, like, I at some point need to find like a real job, so I've been devoting most of my energy to that. There will still be more videos, of course. I hope to get the next one out within about 2 weeks. We'll see if that is the case. And in general, thank you all so much for watching. I love you all. And I'm thinking about making other tournaments in the meantime while this one is rolling out. So if you guys have any thoughts about that, let me know in the comments. Um, I'm thinking of doing like Legend of Zelda enemies, Pokemon. I'm a huge fan of both of those franchises, so I'm really down for whatever. Even if you have concepts for other stuff you'd like to see me do, just let me know. Either way, I will see you all in the next part, and thank you all so much for watching.